Ever drive across a bridge and think, man, I hope this thing doesn't fall apart?
Right, or like walking into a huge skyscraper
Yeah,
and hoping it doesn't crumble around you.
exactly. Well, today's deep dive is all about the people who make sure that doesn't happen.
The unsung heroes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
material testing technicians.
That's right. They're like the guardians of structural integrity, making sure our buildings, bridges, roads, you name it,
Everything.
are safe and sound. And we're diving into a career guide, chock full of info about these often overlooked but essential professionals.
Yeah, this guide goes way beyond your typical job description, It gets into the skills, the challenges, the really cool stuff about this career path.
Because it's not just about testing concrete all day, though that's definitely part of it. We're talking about everything from the soil beneath our feet to the steel beams holding up skyscrapers.
It's true. When I hear material testing, I just think concrete, but this guide mentions it all. Soil, concrete, masonry, asphalt. Like, it's not just one type of material they're working with.
No, not at all. Each material has to meet specific standards to make sure it's strong enough, durable enough, and right for the job.
So what does that look like? When they say testing, what are they actually doing?
So picture this.
Uh-huh.
A material testing technician is out on a construction site using something called a nuclear density gauge. They're checking the density of asphalt.
A nuclear density gauge, what even is that?
Yeah, it's pretty high tech. They use it to make sure the asphalt is compact enough to handle traffic, all those cars and trucks driving over it day after day.
Oh, I had no idea that level of detail went into it.
It's essential.
Yeah.
Or they might be performing something called a CBR test.
CBR test.
Yeah, the California Bearing Ratio test.
Okay.
It sounds complicated, but they're basically making sure the soil underneath the structure can handle the weight.
I see. So they're checking if the ground is solid enough to support whatever's being built on top of it.
Exactly. Think about it. You wouldn't want to build a skyscraper on soil that's going to shift and settle, right?
Yeah.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Makes sense. So how does someone even get into this line of work? Do you need like a fancy degree in material science or something?
It can definitely be helpful. But Guide says a lot of times a high school diploma or the equivalent can be enough to get your foot in the door.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of employers are looking for candidates with certifications or an associate degree in a related field, maybe something like civil engineering technology or construction materials testing.
So experience and certifications are key here. It's not just about knowing the theory. You need to know how to apply it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's say you land a job as a material testing technician. What's the work environment like? Am I stuck in a lab all day?
Well, it's definitely not your typical desk job, that's for sure.
Right.
The guide describes it as pretty dynamic.
Okay.
You might be in a lab, analyzing data, running simulations, but you'll also spend a lot of time out in the field.
Oh, interesting.
Construction sites, manufacturing facilities, you name it.
Wow, so you need to be adaptable and ready for anything. What about the not-so-glamorous parts of the job? The guide mentioned something about hazardous materials.
Right, it's not all perfectly poured concrete and smooth asphalt.
Yeah.
Safety is paramount in this field. The guide really stresses that. Following safety protocols, wearing the proper protective gear, that's non-negotiable.
Yeah, because if you're working with materials that could be dangerous, you've got to be careful.
Exactly. It's all about protecting yourself and the people around you.
Okay, so let's talk career path. Let's say you start out as a material testing technician. What's next? Where can this role take you?
Well, good news is you're not stuck there forever. The guide actually lays out some pretty interesting paths for advancement in this field.
Oh, okay, like what?
Well, with experience, maybe a few more certifications under your belt, you could move up to like a senior material testing technician role.
So more responsibility, like maybe leading a team.
Exactly. You could be overseeing projects, mentoring the newer technicians, getting into the weeds of some really complex testing procedures.
Yeah.
Or if you're more into the big picture stuff, the management side.
Right.
The guide mentions a lot of technicians transition into roles like quality control manager.
So instead of just focusing on like individual materials, they're overseeing the quality of the whole project.
That's the idea. From the foundation to the finishing touches, they're making sure everything meets the highest standards.
That's a pretty cool career trajectory.
Right. And for the real go-getters, the ones who are passionate about materials science, some technicians even go on to become engineers or material scientists themselves.
Wow. But that probably means going back to school, huh?
Usually, yeah. But hey, you're never too old to learn, right?
That's true. So we've got these different paths you can take. What about those certifications of professional organizations the guide mentioned? Can those help you move up the ladder?
Oh, absolutely. They're super valuable, almost like a secret handshake in the material testing world.
Okay.
One of the big ones is the ACI Concrete Field Testing Technician Certification.
ACI.
Yeah, it's offered by the American Concrete Institute, or ACI for short.
Gotcha.
Basically, if you're working with concrete, this certification is the gold standard.
It's like saying, I know my concrete.
Exactly. Then you've got the NICET, the National Institute for Certification in Engineering Technologies. They've got their Level 2 certification in construction materials testing, another one that carries a lot of weight in the industry.
So these certifications, they're like proof you're not just winging it, right? Like you've got the knowledge and the skills to back it up.
Exactly. And the guide also talks about professional organizations like ASTM International. It used to be called the American Society for Testing and Materials, but they shortened it.
Right.
And then there's the National Association of Testing Authorities, or NATA.
Okay. And what's the deal with these organizations? Is it all just like networking events and fancy dinners?
Well, there might be some fancy dinners, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But seriously, it's a chance to connect with other professionals, learn from the best in the field, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You can attend workshops, stay updated on the latest technologies, really geek out with people who are just as passionate about concrete and asphalt as you are.
Sounds like my kind of crowd.
Yeah.
But okay, so we've talked about the job itself, the work environment, the career paths, even how to beef up your resume. But what about the actual skills you need to succeed as a material testing technician? I'm guessing attention to detail is pretty high up there, right?
Oh, you nailed it. That's like #1 on the list.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about being organized, though that's important too.
Right.
It's about precision, accuracy, understanding that even a tiny little error can have massive consequences.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about buildings and bridges here. You don't want anything to go wrong.
Exactly. You can't just be like, oops, my bad, I missed a decimal point.
Yeah.
Lives are literally at stake.
So attention to detail is key. What else?
The guide also talks about analytical skills as being super important.
So it's not just about like running the tests and recording the numbers.
Nope. You got to be able to interpret those results, look for patterns, figure out what the data is telling you. It's like being a detective, but instead of clues, you've got concrete cylinders and soil samples.
Oh, totally. It's like you need to be able to read the materials, know what they're trying to tell you.
Yeah, exactly. You need a solid grasp of math, maybe a bit of physics too.
Right, right. And the guide mentioned something about technology changing the game in material testing. What's that all about?
Oh, it's huge. We're talking about a total transformation.
Yeah.
Remember all those notebooks filled with handwritten notes and calculations?
Oh, yes, stacks of them.
Well, get ready to say goodbye because things are going digital. Sensors embedded right in the materials, data loggers capturing everything in real time.
Wow, so instead of like visually inspecting a concrete cylinder, you've got sensors inside of it beaming information back to a computer somewhere.
Exactly. And it's not just about convenience, though that's a nice bonus. We're talking about software that can analyze that data instantly. It can spot potential problems before they even happen.
That's incredible. So this tech isn't just making the job easier, it's changing what's possible in material testing.
Absolutely. And for anyone looking to get into this field, those digital skills, they're going to be essential.
It's like the future is now, right? Okay, so we've talked about the job, the skills, even how technology is shaking things up. But what about actually landing that job? The guy had some tips on interview prep, right?
Oh, yeah, it's got a whole section on that.
What kind of questions should you be ready for? Will they grill you on like obscure formulas and stuff?
Well, knowing your stuff is important. But the guide stresses that interviewers are really looking for people who can apply that knowledge in real-world situations.
Makes sense. So be prepared to talk about your experience with different testing equipment, the challenges you faced on the job, that kind of thing.
Exactly. They want to know how you think on your feet, how you handle pressure.
So be ready to think back on your experiences, have some good examples ready to go.
And don't forget about those industry standards we talked about earlier. Be prepared to talk about them, how you incorporate them into your work.
Right, because knowing the rules is one thing, but showing them you can actually follow them, that's huge. Well, this has been an awesome deep dive.
It has.
We've learned so much about the world of material testing technicians. They're the ones making sure our buildings don't fall down, our bridges don't crumble. It's a tough job, but someone's got to do it.
That's for sure. And with technology constantly evolving, it's only going to get more exciting.
Absolutely. So if you're out there and you're looking for a career that's both challenging and rewarding, A career where you can actually make a difference. Material testing technician, that might just be your calling. And hey, if you want to learn more about how technology is transforming other industries, make sure you subscribe to The Deep Dive. We've got a whole lot more fascinating deep dives coming your way. Until next time, stay curious.